Okay. Were you specializing in some type of profile for, I mean, because like, I mean, we discussed like you are providing and I mean, finding perfect profile, I mean, engineers or any type of hire for those medical device company. That was like your activity. Did you guys specialize in a specific type of engineering profile, or were you able to find any type of new hire?
So when we talk about the previous firm, I ran my own practice there. So it was almost like my own little mini business. I had my own team, I had my own clients, and I was basically running on my own thesis. The previous firm that I
Mm.
was with, they work with the big conglomerates, they work with the multinationals, and then they also work with the startups and everything in between. And sometimes once in a while, they'd even go outside of med tech and do, construction and that kind of stuff. So I was always very heads down, very focused, medical device or bust. We call it med tech. It could be the catheter, it could be the implant of the neuromodulation device, or it could be the surgical robot, or it could be the remote patient monitoring device that also had a hardware as well as software component, and then started getting into more software as a medical device. We'll call it later on as it started populating or popping up more and more. But with regards to your question on what kind of profiles we were finding, on my practice and with my team, it was everything. So if a company or whoever's listening on this who is building teams for their own companies, if you've ever worked with a recruiter and a recruitment firm before, just on the extremes, there's typically two types of recruitment firms on the extreme polar opposite end. So there's one that are contingency recruiters. So you put an agreement in place and they run around real quickly and find resumes, and hopefully if you hire one of those resumes, they get a fee. There's not really a clean structure or process or craft or profession, if you will, on that one. You're competing against your client, because if they get someone who applied through their own website portal, then they don't need the contingency recruiter anymore. It just is a very different, less structured partnership. And then on the antithesis of that is you have these usually bigger houses and bigger, well-established firms that are called retained search. And they
Mm.
do a lot more executive recruitment, typically only dealing with VPs or even C-level or board of directors. And then you have some of these houses that specialize, like they only do clinical affairs or they only do regulatory and quality. But I never really understood that. And I also get fascinated because my background is in regulatory affairs, right? Like I mentioned when I got my
Mm.
degree. So regulatory affairs
Mm.
touches all facets of a company, R&D through commercialization. And, I'll just give you an example of how my brain worked on building my practice was, if you're doing a CEO search, which we would get hired by regularly, a venture capital firm or a board would hire us to put in a CEO for one of their portfolio companies or a board that they're sitting on. And, it takes a while to put in a CEO. After you
Mm.
find the candidate pool, you're working with, let's call it a handful or two handfuls of candidates that are likely one of them is going to get hired for the position over 3 or 4 months of going through these interview processes, et cetera. And you're building relationships with all of them.